So the first thing, if you are new to speaking, if you have not spoken on a regular basis, you are going to...
Welcome to the Sam Linton Show, the podcast designed to help you shift your mindset, find your voice, and change your world. Sam is a pastor, coach, and expert communicator, helping leaders and entrepreneurs like you step into their purpose, speak with confidence, and make a lasting difference. So let's dive in.
I've thought about you specifically and where you might be in your own particular road with public speaking. And I don't know what that is. I think some of you that are listening to this, you might be in that place where maybe you're in a new role and speaking is something that you have to do. And it's not something that comes natural to you. Well, I just want to let you know it doesn't come natural to anybody. And so today, what I'm going to share with you is I am going to give you the 3 things that I learned in my first 5 years as a public speaker. Now, I never thought I'd be a public speaker. I wanted to go and be an accountant. And God has a sense of humor because accountants usually are not known for their public speaking. And so I didn't realize that God was calling me into ministry, and I didn't realize that I was going to be regularly speaking in front of small groups at first, such as meetings and individual volunteers, and I did that for quite a while, but then it shifted where I would speak in front of the church, and the church was in the 250s when I started coming, maybe 200, 250, and then as it grew over the next 2 decades, now we're into the 600 to 800 range. We're building this massive sanctuary, so I speak in front of people constantly, and I mean constantly. Like every other weekend, I'm in front of hundreds and hundreds of people. So a pastor is the only person, and I'm going to just make this joke because I've read it online, so it has to be true. The joke is that, when you're looking at interviewing the pastor, does he have the ability to write a TED Talk every week? Check. Does he have the ability to lead executive function, high-level function of a multi-million-dollar organization? Check. Does he have the ability to mobilize people when there's no financial gain associated? Check. Does he have the ability to work nights, weekends, be on call, miss holidays, always have Christmas and Easter ruined? Check, check. Okay, good. We will start this person out at $35,000 a year, and that's ministry. Now, I'm joking about our church because our church does take care of me, and I feel very blessed. But I know that when most people enter into ministry, they don't realize what's all it involves. And so definitely one of the things that it involved for me was learning how to speak publicly. So these 3 things I think are going to help you wherever you are, because I guarantee you there's a handful of people listening who may have as much time in speaking as I do, but I know that they might have different experiences, but these 3 are going to resonate. So the first thing, if you are new to speaking, if you have not spoken on a regular basis, you are going to imitate. That's the first thing. You're going to imitate. So what I mean by that is when you find yourself in the position to speak to somebody or run a meeting, or speak in front of a large group, you are going to conjure into your mind the people that you have seen that have done this the best. If it's a one-on-one meeting, you're going to think about the last one-on-one you had, and if it gave you the warm and fuzzies, you are going to want to give your person that you're talking to the warm and fuzzies. If you were kind of spoken to in an authoritarian kind of way, you're going to take that tone. If you were brought in with like a more of a joking, like, hey, how's it going? How about those TPS reports? Remember Office Space from years ago. Like if that was you and that's how you came in, you are going to imitate that style. If you're speaking publicly and you're a Brené Brown fan, you're going to show up and you're going to want to do a discussion about how no one should ever feel shame. If you are a Tony Robbins fan, you're going to want to scream and, shout and get people excited and get people on their feet, and get them to repeat, say, like you're going to go after those communicators. So you're going to imitate, and I want you to know it's okay. one of the things that I'd recommend if you are going to be speaking regularly is to look at communicators that you admire and write down why you admire them. I got this idea from a writer that I knew. His name is Dean Wesley Smith. And he did a great deal of coaching for me when I first started writing books. And one of the things that he said was that you should grab a book, like your favorite book, not like Moby Dick because you had to read it for a report, nothing like that. But you want to grab a book and you want to study it for why you liked it. Like, what made you want to read that book over and over again? Not why should the teacher make you want to read it, no. But what is it about this book that was spectacular? And when you do, then you can replicate that kind of thing in your own writing. Not plagiarize, no. But like, did you like how the author used shorter sentences? Did you like how the author had longer chapters? Did you like how the author would use first person? What was it about that book that made you want to like it, pick it up? So same deal with speaking. Find what is it that you like about them? Like, what is the unique transferable principle? Like, what would you say is the thing that will put you ahead as a result of listening to these people? And my recommendation is lean into the imitation. If you like Tony Robbins, if you like Brene Brown, if you like Seth Godin, if you like Tim Ferriss, Donald Miller, some of these people that do a lot of speaking, Gary Vaynerchuk without the cussing because you're obviously in a professional setting. Like, if you like those people, go and look at them and write down what it is about them that you like. And specifically, what I would also write is why does this matter to me? Why does this matter to me? Like, why does that resonate with me as a speaker? What is it that does this for me communicative wise when I'm preparing my own type of message or talk or outline, whatever? All right, so you're going to imitate. You can't avoid it. A personal thing for me, when I first became a pastor, that's where I first learned how to publicly speak. I had done some speaking in high school and college, but it was on the low end. How much can you really do? You know, if you've taken a public speaking class, that's great. You spend, 3 weeks or 8 weeks in a class talking about all the theories of speaking. And then you have to do 1 or 2 big speeches and get graded. That's the way it was when I was in school. But when you have to speak every week, it's a different story. So I imitated my boss, my pastor, the pastor that I still work with. I imitated him a lot. Somebody handed me an old sermon that I had preached maybe a year after I had started working for the church, and you couldn't differentiate. I sounded just like him. I used the same types of illustrations that he used. I even was able to finesse and use certain tones of language that he would use, like the way I would speak, like my tone and my volume. I measured it against his, and it was almost identical. Now, the problem was, and I mean, there was a great thing because we were at least continuous as leaders, we were doing the same thing. But the problem was I couldn't find my own way. And that's not a bad thing because you don't have a way. You don't have a way. When you're first speaking, you don't know what your way is. Somebody just be yourself. Well, I don't know what that is. This is a version of myself that up to this moment had not yet existed. So sometimes be yourself doesn't work when you are trying to find a new path. You have to imitate somebody else until you finally can see the break in the forest where you can split and become the best version of who you are as a communicator. So that's the first thing. You're going to imitate. It's okay. All of us do it. Who among us haven't do it? We do it when we write too. If you like Stephen King, if you like Dean Koontz, if you like James Patterson, you're going to replicate that in their writing. Oh, and speaking of writing, if you're listening to this, it's the last day. Today is the absolute last day to sign up for the Book to Booking workshop. That is a 90-minute workshop that I'm going to be doing where I teach you everything that I know about producing a book so that you can use that in order to supercharge your business card. So if you are interested in that, and the whole idea is to get more speaking engagements, you become an authority by nature just by publishing a book, just by writing a book. And people will look at you differently. They'll think, okay, this person at least can finish a book. It's like a person that comes out with a full shopping cart. They at least have enough money to pay for those eggs. So they have to be kind of rich. That is an egg joke. If you're listening to this in 2028, when egg prices have gone down, just know that it's a hot thing right now, right? So, but coming back to it, today, March 31st, this is the last day. You can go to glintstorytelling.com/book to booking. The cost of the workshop is $547, but that's not just for the workshop. That includes a 1-hour one-on-one coaching with me, where I will give you a plan, make sure you understand what your next steps are, and get you writing the book. It's a lot simpler than you think it is. It's not as complicated. And I think if you were to spend some time, you'd find that the case. So glintstorytelling.com/book to booking, and we'll see you at the workshop. So anyway, that was our sponsor. All right, so you're going to imitate, get over it. It's all good. Don't be ashamed. Next of all, unfortunately, you are going to agonize. There are a handful of people that I have dealt with over the years who would consider themselves like, oh, I'm a natural. I just go in and I speak and whatever happens and blah, blah, blah. And they kind of come in and they talk about, I could get in front of a room and just give me a microphone and I'll be... Those people, almost always, please don't take me wrong, are usually terrible speakers because they're focused on themselves. They're focused on the fact that they feel like some things have come natural to them. Therefore, this is going to come natural to them. And they don't have any idea how to make a connection with the audience, what an illustration is, how to not talk about themselves, how to not rest on their own communication experiences. And so it's flat. My suggestion is to understand that if you're entering this arena of communication and you're not used to this, it's going to be difficult and you're going to agonize a little bit. And for most people, not the ones that say, oh, I'm really good at this, I could do it, I could kill it. I'm talking about people that are like you and I. You're going to agonize, meaning you're going to go, did I say this? Oh, that was so embarrassing. Oh, when I tripped, I can't believe I forgot that. I skipped a whole thing. I can't believe that person had a question. I didn't answer their question. What was I doing? Like, you are going to replay those moments over and over again, especially if you don't have a lot of speaking under your belt. And the reason why is because of how infrequently you have done it. And I want you to consider something, and this is going to help you. Consider speaking as an ongoing process and not an event. Speaking is an ongoing process and not an event, even if you have a big keynote. Like I talked a couple weeks ago about that big keynote I did. That's just one small picture of me as a speaker. That's one thing. It doesn't define me having that massive keynote. Me having to deliver a talk I did a talk to a small group of Christian business leaders. That doesn't define me as a communicator. What that simply is just one instance of my communication. That's all. That's all it is. And so you have to consider it a part of your process. It's a part of your process. This is just what I do. I communicate. Whether it's frequent or infrequent, if you look at that event, that big event, and you say, this is my big thing, this is my big event, guess what's going to happen? You are going to over agonize. So when you're agonizing, and all of us do it, we will replay the worst moments, we will downplay the best moments, we will reinvent the way the communication went, and we will replay it to other people. We'll tell other people, hey, guess what? I bombed that meeting. I was nervous, I jacked up my slides, I forgot the point, I didn't give them the right call to action, I forgot to ask for the sale, I forgot to do blah, 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 and we have a million reasons why we suck. All right, so we over-agonize. We agonize to the point where we actually become afraid to speak again. So what do we do with this situation? Well, a couple things. First of all, if you're agonizing, I don't want you to lean into the agonizing. What I want you to do is to reframe it as I am learning something new. Now, I will tell you a quick story. This is interesting, but my wife and I, we went for our 10-year anniversary on our honeymoon. We didn't really have a honeymoon when we first got married. We had like a vacation with her parents, so it was already booked. We got married and I said, hey, can we jump in on your vacation, because we were really poor, and we jumped in on their vacation. And if you go on vacation with your in-laws, you know that is not a vacation, that is a prison sentence. I'm just kidding, kind of, but not really. Okay, so I went with my in-laws on vacation, and so what my wife and I decided to do was we said, once we get a little bit of money, once we start becoming more successful, we are going to take a real honeymoon. So we took our honeymoon to Maui. 10 years married, went to Maui. Big deal. Okay, so we saved up the money, we paid cash, Dave Ramsey would be proud, like we were ready to rock. So this is what we did. When we got to Maui, we booked everything. And I mean everything. Like we went to one of those tour places where you sit down and they're like, do you want to do this? Do you want to do this? I was like, yes, 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 yes. Zip line, yes. Bike ride, yes. Volcano, yes. Pineapple, yeah. Like all the things. Like I was just like anything. I knew that this was like a huge opportunity for us. And I wanted us to remember it as our anniversary, as our wedding, honeymoon. So I say all that to say this. We booked a bike ride down a mountain, Haleakala. If you've ever been to Maui, you know Haleakala. It's where you watch the sunrise. It rises above the clouds. Crazy. Google it. It's crazy in Haleakala. And then you could bike ride down the hill. It's 18 miles. Now, I checked. And I said, yes, I want a bike ride. They're like, you don't have to. You could just go on the bus and go on the tour. I said, I want a bike ride. So my wife and I, after a couple days, we were there. And she goes, can I ask you something? I said, sure. And she said, I've never seen or known you to ride a bike. Do you know how to ride a bike? And I was like, what do you mean you've never seen or known me to ride a bike? Like, what does that have to do? I just booked the thing. She's like, I know, but I mean, you're going to ride a bike down a mountain with like traffic on either side, like on a highway. Do you know how to ride a bike? And I said, it's just like riding a bike. You know, let's say it's just like riding a bike. She goes, when's the last time you rode a bike? I said, I had a bike when I was in grade school. I rode it a couple times. She's like, you don't know how to ride a bike. I said, but it's like just like riding a bike. She goes, Sam, that's only if you've already been used to riding a bike and you got away from it, not if you've never ridden it. So I got on the bike. We were there. You know, sun's coming up. They put the slowest person in the front to guide. Everybody else was like Lance Armstrong. And the juicing version of Lance too, by the way. So like they all had their own bike gear. They all had their own they had like these suits and they had helmets. I had jeans and a hoodie and like tennis shoes that were like the laces were coming out. Like I was the most ill-prepared person. My wife, she was good on a bike. She knew how to ride a bike. I did not. So I kept like, I watched a couple YouTube videos. So I thought, I'm like, I got this. And I was really trying to find my way. Well, here, it was so bad, I almost killed myself probably 4 times. On the right-hand side, there's this beautiful mountain where you can, plummet to your death. On the left-hand side, there are cars because you're on a state highway. So I had to make a choice between being killed by a car or falling to my doom. And sometimes I would feel like I was going to go either direction. I would stop and I would kind of like tip over and everybody would have to stop. After like 4 times, they demanded that I jump into the van. They had like the small van that they carried the equipment in. They're like, well, there's room for you in here. And then they put me in there and then I rode the last 6 miles. But I did 12 miles. I didn't die. 12 miles. Never rode a bike really, except for when I was in grade school a couple times. So I think that's pretty good. All right. Now, what does this have to do with speaking? Sometimes it's not going to have to do with speaking. Sometimes it's going to be just me telling you a story because I don't want to call my therapist. I'd rather talk to you. But for those of you that want to know what this has to do with speaking, it's then the idea that we think that we are going to be amazing at everything we do for the first time. That's what we think. Especially when we're adults. When we start to learn something new, we're like, I'm going to be amazing at Photoshop. And then you look at the interface of Photoshop and you're like, I don't know, what the heck? How do you do? What's that button mean? Like, you don't know. When you write a book, you're like, I've written a ton of emails. I could say, you don't know. I mean, if you've not read a lot of fiction, you don't know like story structure. You're not going to know. You got to figure this out. If you're going to try to speak for the first time, you're going to agonize because it doesn't necessarily come naturally. It's okay. In that case, you just look at it as a part of your process and say, I am a speaker. This is what I do. This isn't a big deal. Wasn't the best, but every single time I get a chance to speak, I'm going to get better. I might even become good. Heaven forbid. Maybe I'll become good. Maybe people will want me to speak. Maybe people will want me to keynote. Maybe you don't want to do that. I don't know. But I'm telling you, you're going to agonize. So keep that in mind. That everybody that starts something new, you're not going to be good at it. You know, another thing you have to keep in mind? The people that are listening don't think about your talk the way that you think. We talked about this a couple weeks ago. But the people that are in that meeting that you're running where you're sweating and you've got the cotton mouth and you're like, missing your points and you don't have your slides right, they're not leaving to talk about, she missed that third point. She missed that slide. No, they're thinking, where are we going for happy hour? They're thinking, wonder what the raise structure is going to be under this economy. They're thinking, I wonder what's going to happen with that merger. Nobody's thinking about you. You're not that important to them. I'm sorry. And when I say you are not that important to them, what I mean is you as a speaker, who you are as a speaker, I don't know how else to say this. It's just not that important. It's not. So what you have to do is you have to be super comfortable saying, this is all practice. It's all practice. And speaking, just like writing, it's one of the few things that you get to practice in front of a live audience. You get to practice it out in front of a live audience to see how it feels. You are going to agonize, but remember, nobody's thinking about you the way that you are. Their memory is going to be shorter, and you're not going to be good at something that you haven't done very often. So that's number 2. So the first thing you're going to imitate. Second of all, you're going to agonize, which leads me to the third and final thing. This is almost an offshoot of agonizing. You are going to over-prepare. Yes, my darling, you are going to over-prepare. Your first meetings, your first talks, your first whatever engagements are, team leads, keynotes, your first motivational speech, whatever it is, your first YouTube video, you are going to agonize like nobody's business to the point where you're going to over-prepare. To the point where you're going to script every word out, you're going to write every thought out, you're going to figure out where you're going to pause, you're going to try to articulate these things, you're going to manuscript it so that you can memorize it as if you're going to a quiz, like some sort of game show where you have to memorize everything. You're going to over prepare. And there is something that I learned from preacher. His name's Craig Groeschel. He also has an amazing leadership podcast. Couldn't recommend it enough. But if it's not your cup of tea, I'll tell you. He spoke at a conference called the Catalyst Conference. And it was about how he approaches certain things. And there was something that he introduced. I know it's not him. I've heard other people introduce it. And it's called GETMO. And the GETMO principle is good enough to move on. I just heard a coach from the coach community that I'm in mention this. Good enough to move on. And what he says is eventually when you're preparing, you reach what is called in business the law of diminishing returns. Now, what does that mean? What does the law of diminishing returns mean? Well, what that means, what the law of diminishing returns means, is let's say you spend 6 hours on a talk. Let's say you spend 6 hours trying to craft the perfect message, and then you are just kind of done at that point, all right? And let's say that 6 hours is like not enough. So you extend that to 8 hours, and you get a little bit better, you get a little sharper. Then you extend it to 10 hours. You're like, ooh, I can really start to fish this out, get a little bit more finesse about it. Okay, at 12 hours, 14 hours, and these are numbers that just may be for me. I don't know what they are for you. But at the 12, 14 hour mark, what happens is you start to reach diminishing returns. It was good at 8. It was good at 10. Now you start taking things away that actually might have been good. You start to second guess things that were foundational. Maybe now at hour 14, you start to wonder, maybe I should have did this to begin with. Maybe I should have done something altogether different. And you reach the point of diminishing returns. So one of the things that's going to invariably happen, especially if this is one of your first at-bats in communicating, is you are going to over-prepare like the dickens. I mean, you are going to really, really, really spend a lot of time. And I'm not saying don't spend any time. I'm just saying that if you intend on speaking regularly, you are going to find that, number one, that time is not as much a luxury and you're not going to be able to put that much time away. Like I speak 26 to 20, or I would say 26 to 30 times a year, 4 times a weekend. I do not have time to spend 20 hours on each one of those talks. I study, I have a system, I have a plan of how I do that, but I guarantee you there are some weekends when I'm like, I really could have used more time on this. I really could have. And you have to get to the point where you're comfortable, where it's Getmo, good enough to move on. I've covered the bases. I'm doing the best I can. I've researched, I've studied, I've prayed it through if you're a pastor, if you're a spiritual person, and I've done the best I could. I did a dry run through. I pitched it to a couple people, a focus group. That's another way to do this. So you want to get to the place where like, this is good enough to move on. And you want to give yourself a way to do this. And this might help you if you're an over preparer, or if you're sitting here and you're like, oh, I have a talk that I'm working on and I've already spent 25 hours on it and it's a 10-minute talk. Here's my suggestion: artificial deadline. Give yourself a deadline that you're never going to work on it after that deadline. I mean, I'm not saying you won't listen to it. I'm not saying you won't study it. But when it comes to composition, you cut it off and go, as of Friday, me and that talk, we are no longer together. I am done with that talk. I'm on to the next thing. A professional, the difference between an amateur and a professional. An amateur will sit there and talk about how something went, and a professional will talk about what is next. And if you're going to speak at all for any length of time, you can enjoy the moments of how great it went or how terrible it went and talk about what you could have done differently. But you want to focus on what's next. What do I want to give my time to? Where do I want to focus in my communication? I'm not over preparing, because there's always going to be something else to do. So, in summary, if you're new to speaking, you're going to have these 3 things happen. Number 1, you're going to definitely imitate. Number 2, without a doubt, you're going to have some agony. You're going to agonize. You're going to overthink all of it. And finally, you're most likely going to over prepare, where it's never enough, it's not enough, there's no chance. And so my suggestion to you is embrace where you are and be like the professional that says, I'm not focused on what happened, I'm focused on what's next. Another suggestion, and I'll throw myself out there, I coach professionals, leaders, business owners, entrepreneurs, people that are mid-level, high-level executives that are looking to sharpen their communication skills. If you would like to do a handful of things differently to go from being an okay communicator to an excellent communicator, I'm your guy. I have a couple different ways to do that. One of the best ways, and I'm going to suggest this to you now, I have a VIP program. A VIP program is a half a day with me where we talk through some of your goals as a communicator. We sit down, I analyze your communication style. You're going to come prepared with some talks that you're working on. And if you don't, I can give you some talks. And I will go through a proven framework that I've used for all of my previous clients that talk about the things that will make you an excellent communicator. And these are things that you can take with you to every talk. It's not just those talks. But once you spend that time, you're never going to communicate the same way again. So if you're looking to fast track your communication, I'm your guy. Glint Storytelling Group is your company. So glintstorytelling.com, there I could say that really good, glintstorytelling.com, and book a call with me, and I would love to become your coach and to help you to take that next step to actually make a connection. But until then, thank you for listening to the Sam Linton podcast. Remember, change your mindset, shift your focus, change your world. And we will see you